Welcome in, everyone, to another Sus Edwards Fantasy Football Show. Today, we have in a special guest, a man whose stream I've been on before, but yet to be on mine, Nick Boklage, my man. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. I appreciate having me on. Long time coming. I love what you're doing with your channel. You and Sean are killing it with all these videos of going down team breakdowns, and very excited to talk about these quarterbacks and kind of see what kind of values you've been attacking, and just what maybe I could learn from doing this.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, no, I watch all your streams, and everyone, if you follow me, you probably follow Nick, but if you don't, you got to tap in with his streams. Chill streams, super informative, always has good guests on. I get something new informationally out of all his streams, and it's just a good place to vibe. Good sense of humor, too. So check him out, Nick Boklage on the YouTubes. But today, we're getting into a fun little thought experiment. Three tiers, one player from each of us in each tier, our favorite quarterback that goes in the top 100 on Underdog, favorite kind of mid round, I guess it encompasses a big range, but 101 to 200, and then digging deep after pick 200. Is there something we can find that can give us the leverage on the teams that invest more in quarterback? Last year you would have a Bo Nix, the year before that maybe a Sam Howell, Baker sometimes. So really getting in there in the trenches and trying to dig out a late round quarterback. So Nick, who is your favorite quarterback to take in the top 100? It might not have to be your top exposure guy, but just a
Mhm.
guy that you want to flag plant as this is a guy you will likely need out of the top 100 this year.
So doing so many drafts, sometimes you get take locked in like how you want draft and certain players. For me, I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but I'm gonna say the elite quarterbacks. I think the elite quarterbacks with where they go and how people are attacking quarterbacks now. I think they're some of the best picks on the board. If I had to pick one player out of that whole group, I'm gonna call Jaden Daniels to be probably the best one, just because I think he does go a little cheaper than other guys, and there's a slight tier break between Daniels and the players around him compared to the ones above. But yeah, I think the elite quarterbacks, man, I think people are sleeping on them a little bit.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels is a fascinating case. We think of him as a Russian quarterback, but it's easy to forget how much he rushed. Right up there with like the Lamar Jacksons and the Josh Allens in terms of yardage last year. As a rookie, they kind of slow rolled him the first game or two of the season too. In terms of a rusher, he
Yeah,
I knew coming out he was a rusher. I didn't realize he was going to take off to the extent he did.
no,
You add a weapon like Debo, he already was productive last year. They also kind of in the first part of the year went a little more horizontal than later in the year started to air it out more. They also started going for it on fourth down all the time, which really helped them late in the season. Like their offense really started to take off. Another sneaky addition, Laramie Tunsil, the All-Pro left tackle from Houston. That's like a really sneaky addition, and we'll get to my guy in a few minutes. Their left tackle situation is trending the other direction,
yeah.
unfortunately. But it's like you add a. We'll see what Debo is. I believe in him after the pneumonia. You know, coming back from that, and it's just they're adding so much around him. He's going to take a year to just natural development leap. Like how it's really hard to say that this guy. And I know Lamar and Josh have been great for years. Like this guy
Yeah.
just simply might be the QB1 this year.
That's where I have him ranked right now. He is my quarterback one. I do take all the guys. I think Jaden Daniels, Lamar, Josh Allen. You could throw Hurts if you want to, but you can't really go wrong with either of these guys. But Jaden Daniels to me, I think has an edge because his rookie year was so special. I mean, he goes out 3,500 passing yards, 25 passing touchdowns, runs for 900 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, leads Washington Commanders to NFC Championship, right? Against who they play? Who they I'm blanking. Who did the Washington Commanders play?
In the
Oh,
last
the
game before the
Eagles.
Super
Eagles.
Bowl. Oh damn,
Okay.
that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
crazy.
The your hometown or your favorite team, the Eagles, right?
Hey man, hey man. He did
I
what he
just
could. He did what he could.
he did what he could. I mean, the Eagles were a monster team last year.
He looked better than Mahomes in the playoffs against the Eagles. I'll give him that.
Yeah, and the thing with Daniels is you have to watch out sometimes for quarterbacks that overperform because maybe they do regress the second year. We saw that with CJ Stroud the year before. We've seen this with Baker Mayfield. We've seen this with Daniel Jones. Like quarterbacks, you just never know what you get going to year two. I'm betting on the opposite. Where what if he just gets better? Right? Like this offense is better. They did bring in Tunsil, which I think is a huge addition for that offense. Debo Samuel, I don't think he's the same Debo from like 3 4 years ago, but I do think he helps this offense a lot. The offense will be more efficient. Um, they have all their guys back. I mean Terry McLaurin is still there. They have Eckler, Brian Robinson. Um, so I just think Jaden Daniels with a second year of growing, he could extend. He could definitely top what he did last year. I mean, he completed 69% of his passes, which is really good as a rookie quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think he could push for 4,000 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and then his rushing. I mean, he definitely could get there over 1,000 yards. So I just think he's a quarterback that we're gonna look back and be like, well, like this guy should have been close to maybe the 2 3 turn, which actually I think all the quarterbacks now thinking about it like are could you could argue should go higher around that range. But Jaden Daniels to me, I just think he has the whole setup. He's exciting, he's fun, and his playoff schedule I think is one of the best as well.
That week 17, just like in red Sharpie, black
It's
Sharpie, whatever color Sharpie
beautiful.
you're using, you circle that matchup. Dallas,
Mhm.
who has to pass, and Washington, who can just go band for band with any offense in the league. Now, another thing I forgot to mention, they not only did they add Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, but they added another offensive lineman in the first round, so they further bolstered that unit. And you made a good point that you have to consider like that year two quarterback thing where teams now finally can have a book on you, maybe like they did with CJ Stroud to an extent. Um, but the thing that maybe separates it from me is like last year Washington was dealing with like a lot of dead money, and so they were actually able to go out this offseason and really bolster the roster even more than the first year, rather than like having a lot of guys walk in free agency and losing stuff. So they add around him, and they really figured out his strengths by the end of the year. I think the going for it on fourth down thing is so sharp when you have a guy
Yeah.
with his legs and his composure too. Like for a rookie, like he was arguably the most composed quarterback in the entire NFL last year. It was like scary how
Mhm.
composed he was for a rookie. His confidence is only going to grow. Like I don't want to get too ahead of myself career wise, but like the possible trajectory, I can't remember a guy who had this mobility but also this composure and arm talent. It is like a blend in some ways of like Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a perfect comp where like I mean, obviously he's a Lamar Jackson. You see him with his legs, but he's a great pocket passer as well. I mean, 69% completion rate. And one thing that was interesting when you look at the splits from home and away, he was 75% completion away. His quarterback rating was 108 compared to 93 at home. I don't know if that means anything, but it just the fact that he could go into other stadiums away and dominate like he did, I just think he has such a good composer to his game, and he's a quarterback that I think could reach the 25 points per game threshold this year. And if that's the case, man, like he's like you want Jaden Daniels. Like Jaden Daniels is someone that we saw last year where he was just a monster down the stretch. 33 points, 38 points. Like he was the quarterback, outside of Josh Allen, who had that 50-point banger,
Yep.
which was, crazy. But I just think everything with Jaden Daniels, and also he is the cheapest of the quarterback. If we look at the players going around him, um, let me scroll down. Yeah, if you're looking at the players going around Jaden Daniels, who there are players I like, but you have Ted McMillan. I like Ted. I think he's a fun player, but he's a rookie that's unproven. You have DJ Moore. DJ Moore, I think he's a good receiver. James Cook is a solid RB, but touchdown regression. DK Metcalf worthy. Kittle's fine. I think Kittle's a great pick here too, but I just think that the receivers and RBs around Jaden Daniels, you could get that production a couple rounds later.
Yeah.
Similar, right? So I just think Jaden Daniels is just the best pick in that pocket right now. Maybe outside of George Kittle.
100%. And he did deal with like an annoying little injury mid-season last year with during the Panthers game, I believe. Missed a game, and he just wasn't himself, like mobility wise for a bit. Then he came back strong at the end of the year, just like he started the year hot. So if I had like a little health concern with him, you get popped one time like that, you learn your lesson. You're like, okay, I saw what I can get away with, what I can't in the NFL. You didn't take it too bad, and he's just such a smart player, not a reckless runner. I'm not too worried about him getting re-injured. Or I should say, a higher rate of re-injury than like any other quarterback. And
Hmm.
yeah, I'm as an Eagles fan, it's unfortunate that he's in the division, but from a fantasy perspective, I'm excited to see him because this might be like the last. Like sometimes you can, I mean, a lot of times you can get him like pick 40 to 42, 43. This might be like the last time for a decade we get that.
For sure, and I do think all the quarterbacks are undervalued this year. But I think we'll see next year is quarterbacks are going to be priced up more, right? Like I do think, like a couple years ago, we had Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar going in the second round, early third round, and I do think that next year there's a good possibility that we're going to see that again. So I rather just take the prices now of me getting maybe the quarterback one in the fourth round, where I'm just saying, like, look, I like Tet, but I think Tet, you could argue, could have a similar season to Chris Olave,
Right.
right? Like, I think James Cook, he's a good RB on a good offense, but I think you could argue James Cook similar to James Conner for production. Like, I don't know. I just think that you want to find an edge, and if you're the team in the playoffs, you have Jaden Daniels. I think you're feeling pretty good about that.
And the haters and doubters might say, well, you could get James Cook and then Kenneth Walker or Olave the next round, just push quarterback to later. But the thing is, like the nature of fantasy football scoring, the Josh Allen, the Lamar, the Jane Daniels, and even Jalen Hurts to an extent, they have a ceiling that the later guys simply don't have access to. Like
Hmm.
99.9 times out of 100, these guys access the 40, 50 point ceiling way more often than those other guys, if they can even reach it, which most of them can't. And sometimes in fantasy, a lot of times late in the year, defenses have given up, and these guys are trying to win games to put themselves in a playoff position. They go like a superhero mode. We see this year after year with like Lamar
Yeah.
and Josh Allen recently breaking fantasy late. So and if it's like okay, cool. You could have both of those round 4 and 5 picks. I'm not saying always go elite quarterback, but to fully fade it when they could have like a 45 point game, that like makes up the difference between an RB1 and an RB3 on the week and some. So
Hmm.
sometimes you just have to have it. And then I really like his stack options. I know people are lower on Terry right now. I do think he might regress a little in the touchdown department, but it's not like the offense threw so many touchdowns last year, and it's not like they have so many weapons that he can't still get to 8 or 9. And he could maybe rise in the yardage department if the team goes from like 35, 3,600 passing yards with Jaden to like 4,200, 4,300, totally possible. He just feels like a safe bet for like 1,108, which I'm like, especially with the Dallas matchup week 17 stack,
Yeah.
it feels so nice compared to like we're doing a lot of projection with like JSN, who they fired their offensive coordinator because he passed too much, and now he's getting Darnold, who's behind a terrible offensive line. Garrett Wilson would like kill to have the season Terry just had. Xavier Worth, like we're doing a lot of projection for guys to
Hmm.
get up to Terry's level, and we have no questions about his quarterback play.
100%. Like I've been on the camp where I've thought Terry's like overpriced, and I still think he's overpriced.
He
But
used to go round two. That was like
yeah, yeah, that was crazy. But like I'm okay with the price. I'll take Terry because at the point, like when you look at like the projection, like if you're playing something where like the marathon where you're just trying to get points for the regular season, sure, like there's some guys I think have more upside than Terry, but I still think Terry's just a good player on a good offense with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah, 13 touchdowns probably won't do that again, but there's also the factor where it's like he's always had terrible quarterback play. Well,
yeah.
what if Jaden Daniels is just the one that unlocked it, right? Like, what if Jaden Daniels is going to throw 34 touchdowns this year? Well, Terry McLaurin's probably going to have double digits again. And like you said, I think when you're playing something like Best Ball Mania or tournament style, where it's like, yeah, like Terry McLaurin during the season wasn't probably worth the receiver. Where is he? ADP 32. But during weeks 15 and 17, he's probably worth it because if you have Daniels and Terry, that's one of the funnest stacks that you could have in the playoffs. And I remember last year he was hot down the stretch. Terry McLaurin was balling out, and it's just fun to pair those two together.
100%. I think people should frame it as less of it's a Terry McLaurin ADP and it's a Jane Daniels wide receiver one ADP, and
Exactly. Yeah.
that just gets boosted up. So no, I love the Jane Daniels pick. I also we'll see what's up with Debo, but I tack him on too. Are you doing any Debo stacks or no?
So when do I so Debo, it's hard to get to Debo a little bit because uh where I take Jaden Daniels is like the 3-4 turn usually. And Debo Samuel's ADP is like I have to reach like almost a full round to get him
Yeah,
sometimes. Which I've done before where let's say if it's pick 62, I'll take Debo if I Jaden Daniels. But more than likely or not, not taking much Debo, if anything, even if I don't get Terry McLaurin, I'll still take Daniels and then I'll backstack it with like a Austin Eckler, a Zach Ertz, something like that. Where I think that's like a sneaky fun stack to have, Eckler, Daniels, and Ertz. It's not the sexiest thing, but I do think it could work out just because you saw last year Ertz was one of Daniel's safety blankets. And also Eckler, I think is one of the best picks in general. I mean, if you look at a points per game basis, he was right there with Brian Robinson, and he's still a very good RB, very efficient, good pass catcher, and even has contingent upside of being RB1 if Brian Robinson was to miss time.
yeah. The snap share between those guys got close at the end of the year, even with Eckler coming off his own concussion situation. I think the ADP discrepancy it's gotten a little closer now for Eckler and B Rob, but I don't think it's all the way quite reflecting what how close they could be at the end of the day. So shout out Jaden Daniels, total smash at his price.
Yeah,
Um, I'm gonna go with a guy who last year one of the league leaders in touchdowns, one of the guys you had to have. Went a bit later than where he goes this year, but a lot of people are projecting this guy for regression. But I'm going to explain why I don't necessarily think we should be too worried about that at this price. That is my boy, Tampa Bay's own Baker
let's
Mayfield.
go. But Sus, aren't you worried about their left tackle missing 4 games, or aren't you worried about the touchdown regression?
So yesterday I was a little less worried about the left tackle situation. Um, it looked like he was only going to miss 4 games. I read a couple of Twitter posts from some Twitter docs I like. They project this as maybe a 3 to 4 month injury recovery
Hmm.
from the time of the surgery. That you start counting August 10th, September, October. Okay,
Yeah,
we're November 10th at the long end of it. That's missing half the season. Then about a month ramp up to peak performance. That could be a lot of the season, so that
yeah.
worries me a little bit. I do think it's a little overblown, but there's so much to like about this offense. First of all, they aren't so reliant on like long developing plays. Baker actually gets it out pretty quick. He checks down a lot to his running backs, um, who can both make plays. I'm talking about Bucky and Rashad White, both make plays in
Hmm.
their own right. Sure, you'd love for your left tackle to kick out, but I think they'll figure it out. They also dealt with their own fair share of injuries last season, which isn't as discussed. The extent of how that affected Baker. We talked about like, oh, Baker had this great situation, he's going to regress, but we talk so much about how these wide receivers miss time. The wide receivers missed so much time that we got a combined 1,000 routes, snaps, whatever, from Sterling Shepard, who's certified wash, Trey Palmer, who's never been good, and Raheem Jarrett, who, like, the only thing I know about him is I saw a Yelp review from him complaining about a shoe store near me. Besides that, I don't know. I swear to God, that's true. Besides that, I don't know what Raheem Jarrett's really doing in the NFL.
Yeah.
So they add in Igbuka, who's good for 700, 800, snaps. Like if we had the as bad run out as we did last year, Mike Evans coming in and out of games with hamstring injuries before pulling it and missing about a month. Godwin missed 2 months. Jalen McMillan not one but two hamstring re-injuries that caused him to miss a bunch of games in the middle part of his rookie season. So if we can take those horrible, wasted, empty calorie wide receiver routes and turn it into like a Mecca Ibuka and year two Jalen McMillan, even if Godwin and Evans miss a bunch of time, we're still covered with way better options for Baker to throw to. We're also getting a presumably a full year of Bucky starting instead of Rashad White. I think we all know how much better at this point Bucky is than Rashad White. If he can hold up with those snaps, I think we're just getting an offense that moves down the field even more, if that's even possible. They have
Mhm.
three division mates who are not good on defense in the Falcons, Saints, and Panthers, who are brutal. And the Bucks in their own right don't have the best defense, so they could just be in shootout after shootout after shootout, running it up on bad teams. I know they have a new offensive coordinator, but they seem to be pretty good at picking the offensive coordinators. That might be pattern matching, but they nailed it with Canales in his first year. Then they nail it with Liam Cohen. People were worried about Canales leaving, and oh, Liam Cohen, who's that? And the new guy they have is another in-house guy that came up under those guys. Seems to be sharp. I'm not worried about their play calling too much. There's just so many weapons. They go so deep. We'll see about the left tackle thing, but this offense is just schedule wise and depth wise so primed to just keep lighting it up on the scoreboard.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points. I think Baker's such a polarizing player because you said all the downside, right? Like touchdown regression, he'll have that in the passing game. I'm sure his rushing game, he'll have some regression as well. The left tackle sucks, right? You never want to lose your star left tackle. Um, but his ADP is only 93. He's going as a quarterback 7. So like even if you take 10 touchdowns away from him, give him 31, let's say you take 200 rushing yards away as well, to put more of what he's been doing, that's like 60 points and he would still have 321 points on the year, projecting it as a quarterback 6 or 7. So I think where his ADP is his floor still, because like you said, last year he had one of the best seasons at quarterback, and he did that with a bunch of washed guys. Like Evans was hurt, Godwin missed more than half the season. So like I just think Baker proved that he's just a really good quarterback. The offense is good. The OC, sure you could be a little worried about that, but like you said, I think they do a really good job of picking good OCs to help with that offense. So Baker at 93, I think people are trying to force narratives on why he's going to regress, but even if he regresses, like I feel like you're buying his floor and it's not putting into what he could do with a ceiling case this year.
Yeah, last year he averaged 22 and a half fantasy points per game. That was the same amount as Joe Burrow, and a point more per game than Jaden Daniels and Jalen Hurts. Now, each of those guys left the game early with injury. So it's
Yeah.
fair to say you bumped them back up to about that 22 and a half. But he was objectively on par with three other elite quarterbacks last year. He was also really good the year before. Um, I think there's just worry about like, oh, is the talent really there? It's like, well, can I really blame the guy for like not working out fully in Cleveland of all
Mhm.
places where no one works out? And he had a shoulder injury, and he was still playing through it. Like he looked really good to start his career, then shoulder injury, then he bounces around trying to find his footing with like just like weird organizations and fits. He settles in Tampa, finds a good situation with a ton of talent around him. I think it's very clear now that Baker is. I'm not saying he's Joe Burrow. He's definitely not Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, but there's just so much weaponry there, and he really picks it up on the ground to like a sneaky extent. He's rushing in touchdowns. He's scrambling. He's making plays out of the pocket, broken structure. And again, like last year, he was having to like pepper K. Dotton with targets. It was so depleted at points at wide receiver. You just turn those Sterling Shepard routes into Emeka Buka, who's like the epitome of like a polished pro. We're all pretty excited about him. I know you have some hot like Buka takes as far as Chris Godwin goes. I don't hate it because Buka is like such a good fit, and he's like fine ego wise running next to all these stars. That's what he did at Ohio State. It's just there's so much weaponry there, more than last year, and we don't have to deal with like half a season of like, okay, Rashad White's the main running back for 3 quarters, and now Bucky's coming in. Like, they could really just go pedal to the metal for 17 games. Star running back, star wide receivers. Let's go, wheels up.
Yeah, for sure. I think Bucks, you could look back and be like, why did they go so cheap after one of the best years they just had? Baker's also, he's just a really good football player now. I don't think there should be any concerns about him going back to being a pumpkin. Like you said, he had a historic rookie year, and then the Browns just always fuck things up, man. Let's be honest, right? I mean, they're just not a good organization. So
No,
I think Baker's a sharp pick. He is one that I do think I want more of. I just think that offense could be really good this year again, without even due with the regression and the injury to the left tackle. I still think that the Bucks are a team that I want to bet on because, like you said, in the playoffs, they have one of the best playoff schedules as well.
again, yep. They're due to smash weeks 15 to 17. Hopefully, Wirfs can come back. Maybe my Bucks values aren't quite as crazy values while he's out early on. Maybe they're more like just even values. But by the meaningful weeks in November and December, when we're really starting to cook and need the money weeks, I think
Exactly. Yeah.
the Bucks are
Yeah.
going to go crazy. So
Yeah.
getting into the next range here, 101 to 200. There's a lot of names. This is the largest swath on the screen right now. You got here Jordan
Yeah.
Love, you got your Cam Ward. You got a lot of exciting, rookies and guys who are maybe coming up a bounce back year. But a lot of ways to go here. Which way do you go in this range?
So, so I'll say two things. One is one reason why Jaden Daniels and Baker were such great picks last year because they were going later,
Mm,
right? And this is why I think this range of getting the quarterbacks right are so important because if you could get a top 2 5 quarterback in the hundreds, like you set yourself apart, and that is one of the argument about going against elite quarterbacks because obviously the elite quarterbacks you have the proven production, but you got to pay a premium for them. If you could get Jaden Daniels like you did last year and pick 90 or 100 or whatever, or Baker, I think he was going what 130s, 140s, and they're putting up more points or the same as Lamar Jackson, like that's an edge. So in this range, there's a lot of guys I like. There's a lot of guys I think that have upside. But my favorites of this bunch is Drake May from the New England Patriots. That
okay.
stud right there, comp to Josh Allen. I mean, honestly, I could talk hours about Drake May and why I think he is such a smash pick.
Well, we'll give you 10 minutes or so. But no, when you come look at this whole group, what brings you to Drake May specifically? Some people might say, "Oh, this you have so many explosive offenses like the Vikings. You could stack up
Yeah.
Jared Goff with the Lions, but sometimes it just comes down to ball knowledge and understanding the Konami codes. Drake May just seems like an exceptional talent who overcame a lot of adversity last year.
Yeah, I think Drake May was the second best quarterback. I mean, maybe third. Jane Daniels and then Bo Nix was played really well last year. But I do think Sean Payton had a lot to do with that as well. The thing about Drake May, like if you just look at what he did last year, the Patriots were a dumpster fire. They were
Yeah,
one of the worst teams. When Brissett was starting, it was terrible. They couldn't move the ball.
talk
Once
about a pumpkin.
Oh, he's the definition of a pumpkin. He is straight trash. I remember watching it was like 3 and out, 3 and out. Just couldn't do anything.
Getting lit up.
Drake May comes in though, and like you see that we actually have a functional offense. Like Drake May is moving the ball down the field, right? He's getting us to the red zone, and there's just a couple stats that you look at Drake May. He led all quarterbacks with 7.8 yards per carry last year, which I think was the most ever as a rookie quarterback. He was first in success rushing rate. So like just right there, I mean, he's a running quarterback. He's a Konami quarterback, right? Which obviously you want that in fantasy. And if you take out the games where he didn't have a full 99 or 100% snap share, it's a small sample size, but still 9 games. In 9 games, he averaged 19.2 points per game, which would rank 12th overall last year, and it was ahead of guys that go before him like Mahomes and Murray. So, which is actually really good. He was a quarterback one in points per game last year. If you take away the games where he didn't start fully, He averaged 36.7 rushing yards per game, which was fifth in the NFL. And then his passing yards was 234.8 passing yards per game, which is 14th in the NFL. So in such a terrible dumpster offense like the Patriots had last year, where there's no talent, he's a rookie. The coaching wasn't great either. He performed like he was showing. He had a floor last year of 19.2 points per game, which I think is a solid floor as a quarterback. And the reason why I am such a big fan because even though the additions aren't the sexiest, the Patriots did do a good job of bringing a lot of different pieces in. They drafted Will Campbell fourth overall, which is going to help solidify the left tackle. They bring in Morgan Moses, which is going to help solidify the right tackle. They also had a third round rookie offense lineman. They brought in more free agents, and then in the draft, you know, you draft Kyle Williams, who we don't know if he's good, but I think that he fits well in this offense. He brings speed. Travion Henderson, who I think is such a talented player, Jameer Gibbs type of player. And then obviously you sign and overpay for Stephon Diggs, which no matter how you feel about Diggs, maybe he's washed. He's even though he's washed, he's still an upgrade of any receiver that the Patriots had last year. So, and then Josh McDowns. Josh McDowns, I think, is going to actually is underrated as a hire for the OC. He helped Mac Jones uh, and the Patriots go and make the playoffs. Mac Jones was a rookie. Like people forget Mac Jones. Everyone's like, man, this guy might be the best quarterback in the rookie class. Like
Right.
and I just think that you add all this stuff together. Josh McDaniels, the weapons, and if he showed what he did last year with his floor of what he was able to do in such a dysfunctional offense, and if these things hit, if Stephon Diggs is healthy and he's good, if Trevor Henderson is good, if the offensive line gets better at all, I think Drake May could show his ceiling, and that would be of a quarterback averaging 22 points per game. I think he could finish as a quarterback 4 or 5 overall in the year.
Not even gonna lie, after hearing all that, I definitely got to pump up my Drake May back. So I'm not even kidding. I gotta like really lock in and get some more Drake May because
I'm telling you, the one takeaway is you want a bag of Drake May. I have 27% Drake May is my number one quarterback. I'm a Patriots fan, but I promise you, I'm not biased with that. Like if I could
the
hate the
numbers are the
Patriots,
numbers. The additions are the
yeah,
additions in the running back room and the receiver room in multiple spots. The offensive line like upgraded every unit pretty much except tight end, which Hunter Henry's totally fine.
yeah.
The rushing's
Like
there.
last year, I remember Booty was the number one target,
Yeah.
and Polk was a disaster. Javon Baker was a disaster. Uh, we had Stevenson was it was just such a dysfunctional offense, and I just think that Drake May he's a raw quarterback too, and there's other things too that I have that I pulled up where um I don't know if you know Jacob Gibbs on Twitter, phenomenal guy. Like he is one of the sharpest minds when it comes to fantasy, when it comes to football in general. He watched hours of all the tapes of all the quarterbacks, and I can't pull it up here, but I'll just tell you what it says. So he looked at all the quarterbacks. There's 41 qualifiers, and he looked at the just like just ranking them in what they did. If it's off target percent, catchable ball, deep targets, all that. Drake May was quarterback 11 out of 41 qualifiers,
Mm.
and his advanced metrics looked really solid. Um, so I don't know. I just think that he has all the stuff to make it right, and if the offense is any better at all, I just think Drake May has a chance to smash at his ADP.
No, it totally makes sense. This is a guy that is almost a lock to be a top 100 pick, if not much, much higher next year once we get the full proof of concept. But we're trying to buy these guys before they have the breakout season. Sure, it's nice to buy it after the fact and you feel like you have some safety, but you really smash fantasy and win your league by getting a year early, and nailing it really a few months early with Drake May because you really start to think about it. It's like, okay, you like what he's got in three wide receiver sets. You like both of the running backs that can be on the field at one time. You like the offensive line, maybe the most important part, really just holding up for him and not making life a living hell for him. And McDaniels, like you said, has always been a good offensive coordinator. His head coaching stuff you can't hold against. Some guys are just not head coaches; they're coordinators, and
Yeah,
it is what it is. You
that's what I'll
know,
say. Is Josh McDowell's terrible coach, but he's one of the best OCs in the
yeah,
NFL.
and that's what he is for this team. Vrabel builds culture. The dude has done a good job, with lesser quarterback talents getting massive seasons, QB1 seasons out of Ryan Tannehill, man. If you can do it with
Yeah,
Ryan Tannehill, you can do it with Drake May, who's got a supreme amount of talent. Um, and to look
yeah.
that good in the advanced metrics as a rookie is pretty impressive. Now, we'll segue that into a rookie who maybe didn't have the best metrics. A lot of hype coming in last year. A lot of reasons to dislike him, but doing a bit of projection here, I think there's a lot of reasons to like him, and that is my man, my most drafted quarterback. If I can find him, Caleb Williams. There's some booze, there's some tomatoes being thrown. Guys, everyone settle down, settle down. Things are going to be just fine for Caleb Williams this year. You want to talk about making additions. What better addition is there to make than the best offensive coordinator in football over the last few years, Ben Johnson, taking over the reins of a dysfunctional franchise that couldn't get it going with all the talent they have in that room from last year? DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, who we know DJ Moore has had just as recently as 2023, 1,350 yards in that very Bears jersey. We know Roma Dunze had some good underlying metrics last year, not all the way, but there's a combination of rookie growing pains, but there's also a combination of Shane Waldron simply designing one of the most boring, inefficient offenses in the league, where the routes were predictable. They were long developing route concepts for much of the year. They weren't giving Caleb a lot to work with. Caleb was kind of really thrown up and told, just figure it out yourself, buddy. And for a guy who, if you're gonna poke a flaw in his game, it's he holds onto the ball a little too long. You might want to coach him up a little bit. This like insane weapon and just like tweak some things to be like, oh, you want to do this here, you want to do that there. Get really important to get this out here at this critical juncture. I think if you can get a guy with Caleb Williams' raw talent, and he is tough, man. I know people want to make fun of him. That dude is tough. He takes hits. He's a gamer. He can scramble. He really started to scramble at the end of the year. Sneaky part of his profile. If you can just have that guy Jared Goff it, if Jared Goff, who is taking sacks and getting obliterated, can figure it out in a Ben Johnson offense, I think Caleb Williams can do all that and so much more with his arm talent, unlock so much more than Jared Goff ever could for that Ben Johnson system. You add in Luther Burden, who has had ups and downs in his career, but just raw talent, raw athleticism. You get him as the broken play guy in space. He can rip along one. Colston Loveland, top 10 pick, super talented. Move tight end to go with Cole Kmet, who's fine in his own right. You can go five wide with those guys. You have DeAndre Swift. They could always add another running back. Couple solid bruisers back there as well, and Roshan and Kyle Monungai battling it out. There's just so much talent. They also added 3 offensive linemen this offseason. So for a guy like Caleb Williams, you're getting all these coaching upgrades, offensive line upgrades, wide receiver upgrade, tight end upgrade, year 2 leap, a system that'll help you rather than hurt you. And maybe the most important thing, the offensive philosophy is Ben Johnson for fantasy is we are like attacking for 60 minutes. It doesn't matter if we have a 10, 15, 20-point lead. We are relentlessly attacking and running up the score. There's just not a lot of offenses in the league that do it. 2 that come to mind from last year are Buffalo and Detroit. And like they produce some awesome fantasy situations for their quarterbacks. I just want to be in on this guy who we thought was a great talent, has everything right around him, and the coaching as well now. It's all just coming together for like this
Hmm.
is the last time where we get this Caleb Williams after 100 overall price.
I'll tell you this, if I wasn't taking Drake May, I was gonna take Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams, he was bad last year. He was objectively a bad quarterback, right? He
Yep.
didn't perform well. But you know how we've seen quarterbacks overperform year one and then they they regress year two. Well, guess what happens also? Quarterbacks, especially high prospect quarterbacks, could have a bad rookie year, and then they perform better. Trevor Lawrence, I don't know if you remember, Trevor Lawrence was the golden boy, best prospect since Peyton Manning. was horrible. Like, he was labeled a bust, terrible. They fired Urban Meyer, bringing new coaching, and he bounces back. We've seen this with Jared Goff before. We've seen this with quarterbacks where I think Caleb Williams had so much pressure. And even though he was bad, if you look at some of the metrics and he didn't live up to expectations, he still put up a decent fantasy season. Like, he threw for 3,500 yards, ran for 489 rushing yards, and then I have right here, like, he spiked really well last year. He was quarterback 6, quarterback 1, quarterback 4, quarterback 5, and quarterback 9. So he showed potential of being very fantasy relevant. And you know how how I'm talking up Drake May with he got additions of a torn ACL 33-year-old dude dating Cardi B, who I think they actually broke up, or third round Kyle Williams. Well, the Bears significantly got better. They probably had the best offseason of any team. You bring in Ben Johnson, who's an offensive girl. You bring in the offensive line should be way better,
Yep.
way better. PFF, I think, actually is projecting it to be number 9 overall on the season.
Wow.
That's aggressive to me, but still, like, it's just the jump that the Bears could have is huge. And then you bring in 10th overall pick, Colson Loveland, where every team was trying to trade up for him. Luther Burden, who some had as a first round pick. You still have DJ Moore. You still have Roman Duze. Maybe he's a better receiver than what he performed last year. I don't know. I just think that when you could get Caleb Williams at pick 106, or I think was his ADP, I think is like 109 underdog right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
109. Um, I think I'm 100% with you there. Where Caleb Williams, we could look back and we'll be like, well, it was obvious they upgraded every single thing, and Caleb Williams just smashes this year.
And I think it's important, like when you really boil it down, like it wasn't just Caleb Williams who underperformed as a rookie. It was also Ruma Dunze. And then you
Yeah,
also have two guys. We never heard a bad thing about Keenan Allen or DJ Moore in their career. They were always kind of like quiet, professional vets getting pissed off. So you have two high profile rookies not performing up to not developing, and then you have vets getting pissed off. Clearly, that environment was so terrible that it was like we can look at the the proven variables we have with the vets. They don't like what's going on. The rookies aren't living up to the hype. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. It's so clear to me that getting rid of Shane Waldron, get him out of here, get him 1,000 miles from the team, and getting in Ben Johnson, who was led in the number one offense in the league last year, to take over the number 28 offense last year. But when you really like look at the talent between the passing weapons, obviously the rushing game is a different story, and the Lions were very run heavy. There's a chance that the Bears are even more pass heavy than
yeah,
the Lions, who had 4,500 yards last year. Not saying Caleb's going to go for 5,000 yards. They don't play in the dome, but they could have a higher pass rate over expectation than the Lions last year, just because it's where their strengths lie. You know, they don't invest in a running back, kind of surprisingly, during the NFL draft. I think part of that was they want to see what they've got with Swift. You know, took a late dart on Monungai. We'll see what happens with that. I think they might have taken Travion if he was there. I guess we'll never know, but
yeah. I do think the Bears did want them, and then the Patriots were like, nah, we're gonna get this guy.
facts. There's some Bengals vibes though, in the sense of like this team might have to throw 5,000 yards because they could lose a little bit of faith in their running backs. Not they're not going to run it 30 times a game. That with this talent, this iteration of the roster, and if Caleb can take on that challenge, they have the weapons and the there's just something to be said about. I love when a team doesn't have a weakness in terms of like their receiving core. Like they have the three receivers, two tight ends. You can go 11 personnel, 12 personnel. When you have a really weak link on your offense, like the defense can kind of almost ignore them to some extent. Maybe put a linebacker on your third receiver if they can't cook. But when you're like quote unquote least talented wide receiver and like 11 personnel is like Luther Burden, and like
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
worst like player in 12 personnel is Cole Komet, like you're gonna have so many broken plays when Ben Johnson's designing it up, and you're gonna have spike week after spike week for Caleb Williams, where it really could be crazy. And I think sometimes we can have all the talent in the world, but if the offensive line isn't there, it doesn't matter. But when you have a potentially top 10 offensive line, it's hard to understate the value add that is. And like it's really hard to just say how they don't work out. How they don't at least like equal and pay off their ADP. I'm saying like, dude, they might fucking smash.
And that's what the main thing we're trying to find, because you can make a case for a lot of these quarterbacks, right? Where why they're good picks, why they project good. But we're trying to find you league winners. We're trying to look at, hey, what are the guys in this range that could be the Baker Mayfield, that could be the Jaden Daniels, right? That could separate. And obviously I picked Drake May, you pick Kate Williams. Another thing about Williams too is he finished at quarterback 16 overall last year. He's going at the quarterback 12, and now you add the all these additions. So it's like how does he not get better? Like how does he not finish above quarterback 16 and get better? And you're playing the case, okay, like yeah, sure, maybe he's quarterback 13 this year. He was better, but not by much. But what if we're playing the upside case where maybe Caleb Williams just lacked confidence? He didn't believe in himself because the O line was so bad or whatnot. And if he's able to figure it out, you're talking about Caleb Williams finishing as the quarterback 4 overall. Like honestly, like Caleb Williams could be a top 5 quarterback easy with all the additions and just his prospect pedigree of who he is as a quarterback.
Definitely. And talking about, maybe a confidence issue, I think going back to college, his number one issue, as I stated, was he held on to the ball too long. I think part of that was like he knew he could kind of do whatever he wanted with it and just make a play and go be a hero, roll out, do this, roll out, do that, and he'd still figure it out somehow, make a dynamic play. In the NFL, you can't really do that, so that's where the coach has to come in and make things a little easier. No one's better at making things easier for his quarterback than Ben Johnson. No one's better at making it harder for their quarterback than Shane Waldron. We saw that with his time in Seattle with
Yeah.
JSN and DK Metcalf. These guys they ran the similar routes. They're like all running these like go routes, long developing plays. It's like, what are you doing? Like, where is the intricacy? Where's the movement? Where's like the layering in the routes? There's
Hmm.
none of that with the Shane Waldron offense. So it's going from the least creative in terms of pass play design to the most creative, the least layup throws to the most. It's like, and when you have the talent there to, you know, get yak plays with DJ Moore and Luther Burden and Loveland and Komet even gets long yak plays. It's like, dude, it's all so set up to, at the very least, pay off ADP. Like you said, quarterback 16 in the 28th highest scoring offense. What if they go from the 28th highest scoring offense to like the seventh? Not even the first, but like the seventh. I think he's taking a massive leap from QB 16.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Love Caleb this year.
So we've tackled, the fun top 100 guys, even the really fun mid-range guys, and now we go down. We dive past
Hmm.
Geno Smith, head first past Cam Ward. We're going to the bottom, right to the mud. We're trying to scoop something out there. We're in there digging. It doesn't smell great down there, but there's always a guy after pick 200 where it's like, man, he can give you massive leverage either early in the season as a 17 game starter, late in the season as a breakout. So when you look at this full landscape of the late round guys, some ambiguous situations, what are you feeling after pick 200 at quarterback?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question. I do think that if you're able to get the quarterback, around this that does start 17 games and is productive for fantasy, it's a huge boost for your teams. I don't even see the guy I want to pick actually. Oh, there he is. Jim Carrey looking mofo. Yeah, Daniel Jones I'll be rocking with. There's a few options. But I think Daniel Jones I'm maybe a little more bullish on this year than others, where he's not a great quarterback. Like, like we know that. But I do think that in this system with the Colts, he could thrive. Where we talk about where quarterbacks sometimes like you just need the right system for you to play out. We saw that with Geno Smith. Geno Smith, goes to Seattle, was a bust, and look, he's thriving since then. He I don't even think he was a first round pick. I think he was the 33rd overall pick, like 10 years ago. We saw this with Sam Darnold last year, right? KLC offense, no one really thought he could do what he did, and he did, Who knows? Is that the real Sam Darnold? Probably not, but still, like he was able to put up a quarterback 1 season. And I think that if there's any guys that is this year's Geno Smith, Ryan Tannehill, or Sam Darnold, I think it's Daniel Jones. I just think that he has a quarterback one season on his resume, and this is probably going to be the best offense that he's playing with in his whole career. And I think that's very important for a guy like Daniel Jones, where, yeah, they'll probably have to baby him. But I just think that with the weapons he has, the O line's going to be way better than what he had in New York. And then you have Taylor in the backfield as well to help, relieve pressure. I'm not an A Rich fan. Ever since he took himself out of the game because he was tired, I lost all respect for him as a quarterback. Um, could A Rich start? Sure. Like, maybe he wins the quarterback battle. Maybe A Rich is the quarterback we down the stretch would obviously wouldn't be good for Daniel Jones, but I just think that the Colts organization want Daniel Jones to be the guy. I think they know what they have in A Rich. And if we get 17 games from Daniel Jones, who's also a rushing quarterback. I mean, people don't realize like he rushes the ball. He could go out and run for like 6 7 times for 50 yards. So I just think that Down Jones, I'm projecting him to be the quarterback all year, and if he is, I think he's a really good pick where he's going.
Hey man, Daniel Jones is so fast sometimes that the only man that can tackle him is himself.
It's himself.
He gets moving. He's clocked 20 miles per hour plus. Multiple times. He can really rip. I basically take a Colts player in almost every draft. So my current like Colts skill player exposures: Alec Pierce 21%, Tyler Warren 20%, Taylor 13%, Pittman and Downs both 10 and 9%. Um, it's a situation where these guys are all so talented and so affordable. You worry about it when it's Anthony Richardson, but Daniel Jones has shown an ability to facilitate to the short and intermediate. And Alec Pierce, maybe he's a little more disproportionately affected by just taking because he's late and sometimes you need a receiver, and he's pretty good at football. So Daniel Jones, he in his best seasons, he's had nothing to deal with at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Finally, he gets Malik Neighbors, but Saquon goes, so he never gets the Malik Neighbors Saquon overlap. Never has multiple stars at one time. And sure, he had Malik Neighbors last year, but beyond that, like, okay, Darius Slayton's okay, but he wasn't really deployed correctly. They have Wandale Robinson, who's like one of the worst just volume eaters in the league. Can't even get 700 yards on 140 targets. Theo Johnson was like, he's promising that he was the second worst PFF graded tight end last year, and he missed part of the season. There was just not a lot there, and the offensive line wasn't great. He's getting an upgraded offensive line, 5 weapons wide to go to. Tyler Warren could be a potential breakout this year's Brock Bowers, 85% of Brock Bowers. There's just so much to like, and it's a perfect set for a guy who just wants to facilitate short and intermediate. Oh, okay, Josh Downs is covered, hit Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman's covered,
Mhm.
hit Tyler Warren. Take off and run a little bit. He's got so many lanes to go to where he never had that before. Like we're talking about Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins in their playoff run a couple years ago where they won a game. I mean, they won a playoff game just a few years ago. He's the kind of guy who everything around him needs to be right, but it is this year. And there's a lot to like there. And at this price, it's like all his only hurdle to like fantasy relevance is Anthony Richardson, who you addressed his lack of grind set, his very low dog levels. He seems to be more interested in rapping and taking breathers than really being an NFL superstar. He didn't develop last year. In fact, looked like he regressed. He can't run the amount he did as a rookie, which made him a real fantasy superstar because then he's just going to get hurt. Um, there's so much to dislike about Anthony Richardson. It's like being in on Daniel Jones is as much fading the fact that Anthony Richardson, despite the draft capital and every inclination to intuitively think you're going to make it work with a former top 5 pick, it's like that guy just does not have it as an NFL quarterback. He just Trey Lance didn't have it. You know, sometimes Josh Rosen, not a top 10 pick, but Zach Wilson. Sometimes these guys just don't have it, and that's why they go out and pay Daniel Jones. Make him the highest paid backup in the league, and I don't think he's going to be a backup. I think he's going to start something pretty close to 17 games if he's healthy.
Yeah, that's where my mindset is as well. Sometimes you gotta take shots on the guys you believe in, right? You gotta choose a narrative you want to believe. And I just think it makes sense. I just think Down Jones fits this offense way better. The Colts were 8-9 last year, right? They were close to being a playoff team, and that was with terrible quarterback play. Where I think Daniel Jones, I think he's better than Joe Flacco. I think he's better than AR in that offense. Like you said, like I do like the Colts this year, like the skill positions. Um, I'm very high on Warren and Downs this year. I take a lot of Pierce. I think I'm betting heavy on the Colts this year. So for me, if I'm betting on the Colts, like you don't necessarily have to choose Daniel Jones, because you could just play the game, right? If Daniel Jones is a starter, your Colts players should be better. But I like to stack, and I think stacking a cheap quarterback in the rounds 17, 18. And if you think that they're gonna start all year and be the guy, do it. And that's what I'm doing with Jones. Like he's one of my flag plants where I just think he's gonna show people like, like, hey, it was New York, just like Barkley, right? Barkley last year, people didn't upgrade the offense's situation in Philadelphia, and look what happened. Barkley, RB1, great. Obviously, the prospect of Barkley is way better than the prospect of Daniel Jones as a quarterback. But I just think people don't understand the situation and environment for quarterbacks are the number one hugest things for them succeeding in the NFL.
100%, no doubt about it. You get pretty much like 5 or 6 real superstars, and then beyond that, these guys are very dependent their fantasy value year to year on their environment, and arguably the best environment, top to bottom, depth wise that Daniel Jones has had. I think they're going to run some fun RPO stuff. Seems like they can use Tyler Warren creatively. So, they were doing some RPO stuff with Anthony Richardson, but he couldn't really like come off it and like
Yeah.
hit the rollout to Downs and Pittman. Daniel Jones is going to be able to execute that if he can just, the lights aren't so big. Yeah, the pressure isn't going to be in his face like with the terrible offensive line in New York. It's like the perfect place for him to rebuild his career. And I know he's like a meme or whatever, but Sam Darnold was an even bigger meme. And look at him, he got 35 million the next year. Baker was a meme, and Geno got punched in the face. Like all this crazy stuff happens
Yeah.
to these guys, and we keep seeing these guys turn their career around. I don't want a pattern match, but we're looking at it objectively. It's a hand in glove fit, perfect fit for a guy. And at this price, how could you pass it up?
It's so crazy because if you look at Geno Smith, Sam Darnold's stats from their early career, they were
Right.
so bad. And then both, they put up career years. Sam Darnold just ridiculous what he did last year. Uh, and I just think A Rich, like he's just terrible quarterback.
Yep.
I mean, 47% completion rate last year. Like you can't lead a functional offense if you're performing like that. Like it's so bad. I'm not worried about they drafted I think a fifth round quarterback. What's his name? Luke Riley or some shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's another
Riley
quarterback
Leonard.
people are worried
Shout
about
out
him. I'm
Riley
not. I
Leonard.
don't think he's a starter at all. I
No.
think it's gonna. Yeah, yeah. Shout out Larry Rendered. I'm not worried about that. I really doubt Down Jones could be that bad. Uh, that they're gonna want to run him in the offense, but we'll see. There's a reason why he's going later this late, and there's a reason why we're obviously trying to select what quarterbacks in the dumpster we think could be good. So that is mine. I am interested to see who you pick and who you decided on this late.
Yeah. No, this was a tough one for me. Before we move on, I'm going to throw a fun hypothetical. This is actually not fun at all. But would you rather have, based on what we saw last year, this guy actually won some games when Jordan Love was out, and I think they were similar prospects, but one goes top five, the other falls a bit. I think you can make a decent argument that Anthony Richardson is not only not better, no better than, but worse than Malik Willis at this point.
You know
Malik
what? Give
Willis
me. Yeah.
completed 74% of his passes last year. The opposite of 47 is 74.
Yeah, give me Malik Willis all day, man. I'm
No,
just I'm so out on A Rich right now.
it's a
But like, hey, maybe A Rich goes to maybe in 4 years we'll be having this discussion again about who's like a late round quarterback because A Rich signed with the Browns and
right.
he's like
And that
okay,
Browns culture is going to fix it. By then
yeah, yeah,
it'll be
so
opposite day.
that's
Um,
that's funny.
so I looked long and hard at this section, and by long and hard I mean I looked at like the 7 or 8 guys we got down here. I hadn't even thought about Will Levis, whose face is on here. That is, I would like to delete his face if I could. Unfortunately, that is not part of the app feature to delete his face here. I almost went Joe Flacco, but I put out a Browns video, and in my heart of hearts, Joe Flacco is a little less likely to start weeks 15 to 17 than the guy I'm going to pick. And my exposures, I have 4% of the guy I'm about to say, as opposed to 1% Flacco. So, truth serum, that's where I'm at. I need to get this 4% up because I take a lot of his stacking partners, especially Darius Slayton and Theo Johnson, have a big bag of them. It just kind of makes sense for me to put my boy Jackson Dart here, who first round pick and has the cannon arm, has the legs, by all accounts has been lighting up Giants mini camp over the June period. And the dude has some, this is like not a metric at all, unless, I mean, depending on how you look at it. The man's aura points
Yeah.
are so high. So much aura, like Joe Burrow level aura, we're talking about. All his teammates love him, and I get this not like super analytical, but if his teammates love him, he is going to get on the field eventually. If he has the best mobility on the team, he's going to get on the field eventually. Malik Neighbors and all these guys are not going to stand around while Russell Wilson, just gets sacked and throws picks and doesn't hit guys over the middle. The worst part for Russell Wilson, who could have been in consideration in a different environment, their schedule is so unbelievably cooked. The Giants, in my opinion, have the hardest schedule in the NFL this year. Let me know if you find this schedule to be conducive for a 17-game starter. Even a vet like Russell Wilson, can he, after this many, what I anticipate to be losses, keep the job? So
Okay.
let's run through it real quick. At Washington, loss. Let me know if you disagree genuinely. At Dallas,
Hmm.
loss. Versus Kansas City, loss. Chargers, probably not going to win that game. That's 0-4 potentially.
Yeah, on forward there.
At New Orleans, let's say they steal at New Orleans, right?
Hmm.
Eagles loss. At Denver, tough play, loss. At Eagles, loss again. 49ers. I mean, through
One
week
and
9,
eight
I
right
don't see
there.
more than one win on that schedule. This is like the fans are kicking down the door to like dude, you got to put in Jackson Dart. I know over their next 4 games. How about at Chicago, the Packers, the Lions, and Drake May and the Patriots, dude? That schedule sucks so bad. And then they come off the bye for Washington. So like, dude, they're so cooked. It's the toughest schedule in the league. They're gonna just accumulate losses. Even if Russ is decent, they're gonna accumulate losses. They're
Yeah,
going to
they're
throw their first round pick, who the entire team loves, who has all this raw talent, out.
yeah. That I think Jackson Dart's a sharp pick. Because there's no way that he's not going to be starting before their bye week. There's no way. Brian Dable wants to keep his job, and after the Giants are 0-4, you know how angry the fan base is going to be if Russell Wilson is just out there, just fucking doing what Russell Wilson does. Like I think Dart, and the thing about it too with Dart
Let's
is like,
ride. Let's Giant.
yeah, he's like it's 0-4, they're down 30 points, and you just see him smiling, saying, let's ride. I just yeah, I think Jackson Dart, if we knew he was going to start, let's say 12, 13 games, like he would be going higher for sure, right?
Right.
But that's the fear though, is like, we don't know when he's gonna start. Obviously, Brian Dable said that he wants to sit him all year potentially. No one buys that. Like the Giants are gonna, I'll be shocked if they have more than 2 wins in the first 6, 7 weeks. So, and once starts on the field, it's a very fun, it's a very fun environment for him, right? He can run the ball. You have Tracy and Scabula at the back for that could catch. You have Malik Neighbors. You have Slayton, Wanda Robinson, Theo Johnson, Andrew Thomas. He missed a lot of the season last year. That's one of the reasons why the Giants O line was so bad. So I do think Dart could be successful in this environment. Potentially maybe he shows a little bit of Drake May, where he just, he's able to move this offense more than Russ and James Winston is.
And it's kind of like the Drake May thing last year, where the coach last year for the Patriots was talking about, oh, we might just let Jacoby go this year and kind of see what
Yeah,
happens. It's like we are not buying that shit, dude. Not for a second. You have to put if you're losing games and you're getting that embarrassed, you have to put out the first round pick if they really can play, if they're not so raw. And I think there's a belief, maybe a misconception, that Jackson Dart is more raw than he is. The dude was like hyper efficient in college, kind of reminiscent of the criticism about Bo Nix where they're like, oh, this is just a college system, and it's like, no, he showed a little bit more in terms of reads and progressions than that. I know he a lot of times he could just like lob it up to Trey Harris and everything would be fine, but to me on tape he showed enough as a passer, as a guy who can read a defense, seems smart enough that just take a little time, go through mini camp, and sit out a month, 6 weeks, even 8 weeks, because you're getting a guy in round 18 who has that, like you said with Drake May, like a 19, 20 point per game type of late season in him. And if you can get that round 18, and not just get that round 18, but he like doesn't go in a lot of the drafts I'm in. Maybe you have a different experience, but like he goes undrafted a lot for me. So you might have like super low owned leverage in round 18 with a high upside quarterback.
Yeah, I think Jackson Dart. I think I actually like that more than Down Jones. I think because Jackson Dart, you're guaranteed yourself, he will be there late season, and also there's a chance that Jackson Dart might be a really good quarterback. We don't know. And even if he's not a great quarterback, I still think he could spike your lineup. And it also makes me want to take neighbors more as well, right? Like I
Yep.
think that's another thing too is like try to get some of those because who the Giants play? Oh, they play Raiders week 17, right? So yeah, so I don't know. I think Dart is a great pick here. Are you Dart over slow like straight up?
I think so. My problem with all the Saints quarterbacks, you have Spencer Rattler, you have Jake Hayner, you have Tyler Shuck. It's like none of these dudes did anything in college. Rattler was a disappointment. Tyler Shuck was a 25-year-old quarterback in the ACC last year. Never went over 1,600 yards until his seventh season in college. He played 7 seasons in college, backed up Justin Herbert at Oregon, and he couldn't make third team All ACC as a seventh year senior. I just don't see it. He had a super high throwaway rate. Tyler Shuck to me is like the epitome of a guy who is just not. It was just a really bad pick. Like sometimes NFL teams get it wrong. He was a day three prospect to me. Total reach, a team that was desperate with Derek Carr hitting them with a retirement risk last minute. And here we are. Tyler Shuck is the maybe starting quarterback. I have no faith in that guy, whereas Jackson Dart was a total dog. The production was there, some wins were there, the accolades were there. I Give me the late season stretch that I feel pretty like very certain almost really with Dart that he is going
Mhm.
to be the guy down the stretch. And when he's the guy, you get the points. Shuck, it's like he might start 5, 6 games to start the year. And it's like, okay, dude, we just put in Spencer Rattler. All right, just put in Jake Hayner. Who cares? It's cooked.
Yeah, exactly. And at least well, at least Dark could throw to neighbors like 20 times. you
Right.
know, at least he has that option to follow up.
I don't have to worry about like Kamara getting traded at the deadline, for the Giants.
For
Like they're
Chris
gonna have to.
Olave having his like seventh concussion.
Right. Like some real systemic risk for the Saints. Whereas the Giants, I'm like, okay, I kind of like Darius Slayton. Obviously, love neighbors. Theo
Yep.
Johnson is
He's a
Theo
fun
Johnson.
type.
I'm like, yeah, I like him more for fantasy, but he's just like a free 18th round fantasy. So
Yeah.
sometimes kind of fun stack. Something in each part of the draft, kind of like our little draft today. You go Malik Neighbors early, then you go Tracy or Scatterbo, your flavor in the middle. And then the last 3 rounds, you can do Slayton, Theo Johnson, Dart. It's kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it gives you option to back stack as well, right? Because you have Slay and Theo late. You could do Wanda if you want, right? So I
Get out
like,
of jail.
yeah, get out of jail free card.
So if we were to do one honorable mention as you peruse this room, is there any honorable mention you'd want to throw out there before we get out of here?
Man, that's a good question. I'm gonna give Bryce Young a shout out. I think I think Bryce Young with what he showed last year down the stretch where he was really good, right? He was balling out. Uh, a lot of the advanced metrics, I think the last 7 8 games support what he did, and he goes later. He's like I think he's around like pick 150 in ADP or something like that. But then you bring in Tet, eighth overall pick, who I think is a monster. I think he could really open this offense up. And if Bryce Young is what we saw last year, and then you add in a guy like Tet, I think the Panthers could be a really fun team this year, and Bryce Young could take another step forward.
A lot of exciting pieces there with Tat and Coker and good play caller. And, if we didn't get that late season breakout, I'd be a little worried, but we did get it. He looked actually pretty dang good down the stretch. So lots of like with Bryce Young. If I were to throw a guy out there, I think I'm gonna give it to another rookie, number one overall pick, Cam Ward. I think this dude just has all the intangibles. He has the arm talent. He clearly has like a crazy work ethic and like good attitude. Um,
Hmm.
that I have like no concerns about bust potential. The only thing holding me back on him a little bit is his coach. I think Brian Callahan is not it in Tennessee, but he might be so good that he can overcome it. Um, and we could be talking about Cam Ward next year as up in that like 105 overall type range, like the Caleb goes this year. I think Calvin Ridley is a slept on talent.
Yeah.
And give me Chig and Elik Iomanor late.
Ooh, I love me some Chig. If
You
if
put
if
me on to that. I'm growing on it. I'm growing on it.
Yeah, man, yeah, Chig, Elite Animore backstacks hit like crazy with Cam Ward.
Hit like some unspecified drug that I'm not going to say for the algorithm. But I think we threw together a good list here. Some solid targets, all parts of the board. Definitely guys you want to have your exposure up to. And, there's other names we could have said. Sometimes it comes down to your stacks, but sometimes you have to just take a step back and really like, it's so easy to have your receiver and then be like, oh, okay, whatever quarterback comes with it, I'm
Yeah,
in. But sometimes you're like, you just look at the quarterback and it's like a reframing of the overall offense. And you're like, this guy is going to score fantasy points. The quarterback is driving this more than the receiver. And I'm going to build out offenses as a result of my conviction in this quarterback.
yeah. There's a lot of quarterbacks still that I like that I think have good upside that I think are mispriced. Maybe in the future we could do a tiers video or something, or going over some of these quarterbacks. But had a lot of fun today, man. I feel like I learned some stuff. Definitely after this, probably gonna hop in a draft or something so I could draft these quarterbacks that we're talking about. But yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on and talking ball as always.
Oh, yeah, Nick, I always appreciate you coming on, me going on your stream. It's always a blast. And again, guys, go check out Nick's stream. If you haven't checked it out yet, what are you doing? Hot best ball summer. The man is streaming all the time. Great streams, great guests, great knowledge, most importantly. And it's always a chill time. I love tapping in. So go check out Nick Boklage on YouTube. And
Yeah,
while you're here, hit like, comment who your favorite quarterback is. Maybe do the same exercise we did, like your favorite early, middle, and late quarterback. Let us know down below. But until next time, guys, that's all. Peace.
peace.